Good evening, guys. Welcome to another edition of UKPW Insider. Today, it's my pleasure to be joined by one of the newest faces of the UKPW roster, the really good egg, Rex Armstrong. Rex, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me on, mate.
So, getting straight into it, were you always a fan of wrestling?
Yeah. I think. I don't know about other people, but I think I had a period where I stopped watching it. I was thinking about this the other day. I remember. I think the first time I ever watched wrestling was that Royal Rumble where it was Mankind and Triple H, like the street fight.
Oh, good, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and he's like Cactus Jack, and they just like absolutely belt each other for ages. I remember being a kid and watching that and being like, "This is mad! Like, what are they doing?" And then, I've definitely got to watch. It's like tune into Raw to find out what happens. And I'm like, I'm definitely doing that. Like, I want to find out what happens. And then it went from there. But then I think it probably got to like 2002, 2003, and I think I just sort of fell off a bit. I got more into like music and like playing guitar and stuff like that. But then, probably around like 2014, 15, I started watching a lot of Japanese wrestling. Someone sent it to me as like, "Oh, look at this nutter landed on his head." And I was like, "Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, wrestling." And then sort of started watching it again. I was like, "This is great." So I had a little bit of a gap. I feel like people talk to me about matches and stuff like that, and that happened in that time. And I feel like I probably have managed to catch up on the big ones. But there's every now and again someone will be like, "Oh, this feud," and I'll be like, "Oh, sorry, man, I have no idea." I write it down on my list of things to catch up on.
But I remember my first show was it was the Royal Rumble that had the three faces of Foley.
Yes, so good.
What a show!
Yeah,
you talking about Japanese wrestling? Somehow, for some reason on a whim, I just ended up ordering Wrestle Kingdom 8.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one with Prince Devitt against... I can't remember who he faced, but it was one of his last ones before he went to NXT.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But then for some reason I stopped watching it, but...
Yeah, I think like my like Japanese wrestling, sort of like the wrestling that I tend to watch the most of now. I think it's sort of like what I like my wrestling to be, like more like sports orientated rather than. No, I love the obviously entertainment side of it, but I also like it sort of grounded and in sports. I think the first Wrestle Kingdom I watched was the one where they had I think JR was commentating because I was like, I can't do the Japanese commentary. I won't be able to figure it out. And then they were like, we're doing this. This is the first time we're having English commentary, and they've got like JR and I think Matt Striker or something like that. And I was like, cool. Well, they'll explain it to me.
That was the one with, and apologies if I butcher these names, but Tomohiro Ishii against.
Was it Shibata? It's nearly always Shibata that he's battering.
I think that was the year after, but Honma.
Was it Makabe or was it Honma?
It was Honma.
Yeah. I think Honma stepped in for Makabe, I think, and he just like smashed it, didn't he?
Yeah, I remember he chopped him in the throat, and I was like,
"Yeah,
ow!"
And Honma with like the scariest wrestling voice ever because he got clotheslined in the throat like 10 years ago, and it's like ruined his trachea. So every time he talks, he's like, "Ah!" So whenever he talks, you're like, it's the scariest man ever. But he's this guy that just runs around trying to headbutt people. Mad. With the greatest tan of all time. Love it.
Right. So yeah, the Rumble match you were talking about, was that the match that kind of hooked you into wrestling?
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously around that time, it's not long before some glass shatters and Steve Austin arrives. And as a kid, you're like, do you know what I mean? As a kid, you're like, oh, wow, who is this guy? He's like, because, at that age as a kid, what am I like 13, 14 when I'm watching this probably? like the bane of my existence is like, teachers or my parents. So here's Steve Austin just beating up his boss. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could beat up my teachers and all that sort of stuff. So you see him doing that and you're like, oh, he's the best. Like, he's just wicked.
So how did you actually get into the wrestling? Like who broke you into wrestling and who trained you?
So I did the beginners course at Knuckle Locks a couple of years ago, and I think I wouldn't say there's anyone specifically that sort of broke me in to the business, because there's obviously so many different trainers at Knuckle Locks. And after I did the beginners course, I would try to go and train at other schools if I got a chance. But I'd probably say people that I've learned the most off of would be Eddie Dennis, Shah Samuels, David Francisco. A lot of training courses with him. So those would be, especially in obviously we've had this horrible year out, and it'll come back to wrestling when it's all safe to do so. So I can only really seem to remember the most recent memories, and those are like the main. Do you know what I mean? So like in the last year, when I think I actually got vaguely good, I would attribute it largely to those three people anyway, especially Shah and Eddie, who are just sort of like got so much knowledge between them. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've got to say actually, congratulations to Shah Samuels and Eddie Dennis for the stuff they're doing over in NXT UK.
Yeah, I think there was a period of time where they would come back from, doing a week stint with NXT and doing the performance center stuff, and they come back and in their classes you just get this awesome filter down of everything they'd learned would just be getting passed down. So like I said, I think I did the beginners course, and I sort of learned how to do what's the basics, but I think when I actually became even remotely passable or vaguely good as a wrestler was off the back of training with those guys, and just the fact that Knuckle Locks gives you the opportunity to train with so many people that are also just on shows. So you can go to any class and there's like Connor Mills, Theo JMO, Chuck Mambo, TK. Do you know what I mean? You can just turn up and be like, oh, awesome, there's an opportunity to wrestle them and learn from them. It's just it's one big learning tree. It's great.
Definitely. So have you got any favourite memories so far?
Oh yeah, loads, absolutely loads. I remember, I think like my favourite one. No, I don't know if I have a favourite. I've got loads. I've got loads from when I first started training. They're all just memories of being like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. That now I think, I sort of laugh. Like I to have it like sort of the first time that you hit the mat and you're just like, oh, that wasn't great. Or running the ropes and you're like, oh, these ropes really hurt. But I think probably I mean all my favourite memories are just hanging out with my best friend JJ Lynch, who I'm in a tag team with, and probably most recently the last match that we had, winning the Battle Pro tag team titles in a street fight. So that's easily one of my in the main event as well, which was something that we hadn't had before. So that's probably my favourite memory. Is probably that one specifically. But yeah, there's loads, isn't there? lots of fun little stuff that happens in matches or on the way to shows and back from shows.
That's coming up actually. But yeah, how did the Good Eggs actually come about? I mean, I know obviously you and JJ Lynch are best friends, but was there a story behind?
Yeah, we started the beginners class, Knuckle Locks, at the exact same time. So I remember coming to the class and looking around, and there's sort of like 30 people there. I think I just started talking to him and two other people who we're both still friends with. They don't wrestle anymore, but we're both still friends with. And I think we all realised that we just sort of clicked and had sort of similar personalities and similar interests, and I think we're all like, maybe with the exception of one of them, who I think thought he was going to become world champion, bless his socks, all four of us had this, we were just like, yeah, we're just seeing how it goes. Like I was fully prepared to take my first bump and roll out the ring and be like, no, bye, keep your money. I won't be back. you can keep this for the next 6 weeks. I'm not coming back at all. So I think we're all just like, we had this goal. I think all of us were like, oh, just have one match that you can invite your friends to. Do you know what I mean? And be like, that would be cool. If you could say you had that, that would be all we had from it. So I think that was what all bonded us together. We were all quite realistic about what we had to achieve. And then, yeah, well, because, you know, you train together, and then we started helping out on shows together. And then, unfortunately, I got quite a bad injury. But then JJ got on shows, so I used to get to go and watch him wrestle and stuff. And then when I healed up from my injury, I managed to get on shows and start wrestling around and stuff like that. So we're just really good friends, and we're always driving to shows, always hanging out together, always driving back from shows. So I think we're at a certain point we were just like, we're basically just like best mates anyway. So we should probably just start tagging with each other. And we got a good like big brother, little brother dynamic. Yeah. So we were just like, we should just be ourselves and tag team and have some fun. So yeah, we just decided after a while, we were like, well, if we're driving everywhere together, we might as well start tagging. It's like the only thing we're not doing.
But I think I saw you tagging down at there was a show in Chatham.
Yeah.
And I think you and JJ tagged up then. Can't likely think who against, but I was like, I recognise him.
Yeah, you probably, from the amount of times you probably saw me and JJ, probably, you know, putting up the shows, putting up the ring, and turning up for like, you know, Phoenix promotions and stuff like that. We used to go and do all those rounds and things like that, just helping out where we can.
Yeah. Speaking of Phoenix promotions, were you a referee at one point?
Yeah. I did.
So.
I did a refereeing. Yeah.
I remember that because I'm going off topic here, but I remember I was doing the timekeeping.
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, that
I think I vaguely remember that. God, that's got to be years ago now. We were doing that. Yeah, I first, like I said, we were like training and stuff, and like I think JJ was wrestling then, so it was me still just sort of coming back from this injury that I had. That had me out for about 6 months. But I was like, I still want to be around it as much as I can and learning. So I used to turn up to training sessions and just sit in and watch and seminars. And then eventually I was like, oh, well, the injury's got a bit better. I think I could probably ref. So I had loads of great experiences, loads of great experiences reffing, where it came to just being in the ring and watching. Like I refed a Jimmy Havoc match, like a Mark Haskins match, and just to see them work like super up close, and like how they were wrestling and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is amazing! What a great experience.
I was going to say, that must have been quite a scary experience.
Like, yeah, well,
refereeing a certain Mr. Havoc.
Yeah, we likes to get in your face. So, but luckily, like it wasn't like I hadn't seen a few of his matches before. So I was like, oh, he's going to come over here and give me some abuse. Be ready. I think I just cowered and started to cry.
So let's talk about the funniest stories. You said you and JJ have had some funny moments.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many funny moments we've had in matches. Because I think when we get in the ring, we take it quite seriously. We don't, do you know what I mean? There's some people that sort of like to have a laugh, and you'll be wrestling with them, and they'll be like, you know, taking the piss out of you as you're wrestling and stuff like that, trying to make you laugh. But we take it quite seriously. But most of the time, it's just us on the road. Like, if I could count the amount of time, I can't count the amount of times that we've been talking, and JJ's really animated with his hands and he's talking to me, and whatever I'm eating, drinking, I just knock out my hands because he's just so into what we're talking about. And I'll just be like, hey, what? I know this all the time. Like, I'll just be. What was one show where I was sitting there. I got this banana that I've been really looking forward to, and I made the mistake when I was around him of peeling it all the way down. I should have only peeled a little bit. I peeled it all the way down, had one bite, and then he immediately knocked out of my hand. It was just all over the floor. Does it all the time. Drinks. I can't have pints around him. It's a nightmare. Yeah, I think it was one of those moments where he did something like that. Probably the 5th time that day, and probably, you know, the 100th time that year. I was like, this is why we should be tag team partners, because like, this is just ridiculous.
So you say it's kind of like Big Brother, Little Brother. At the end of the show, I bet you're just like, I bet at the end of the show you're just like, oh, never again.
Well, normally at the end of a show, or the times that we've gone out, when we go out and have a few drinks afterwards, or even like not even after a show, when we go out and have drinks, because we'll go out and have a few drinks, I normally end up just sitting back and being like, how have you got me into this trouble? I don't understand how I'm once again in this situation. I'm always scratching my head about how it gets me into these sort of problems.
So, who would you say some of the biggest practical jokers are that you've encountered?
Practical jokers? Do you know what? I don't think there's not too many that I've bumped into. I don't know about you. I'd love to hear if you've got any practical jokers. I know the few times that I've been at UKPW, I wouldn't say it's a practical jokers or anything like that, but I know the one thing that I love about UKPW is how much everyone wants to have fun at the show, and not to, the extent that it's detrimental to the show, but it's good to turn up and be like, oh, everyone's having a good time. We're all really looking forward to wrestling. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you can turn up to a show and you're like, oh man, this is like the most serious thing ever. Like, Ellen, this is really intense, and like, I feel like I can't crack a joke. Whereas, unless you're in one of the top, these days now, one of the top 5% of wrestlers in this country, it's all basically a hobby. No one's making thousands of pounds off it, are they? So, you turn up and, you don't want to, why would you want to be miserable at your hobby? Do you know what I mean? It's like turning up to Sunday football and like not feeling like you can crack a joke. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're here to have fun, essentially, and we're here to make sure that other people that have paid their money are having fun as well. So that's what I always liked about UKPW. Everyone's sort of cracking a joke and stuff like that. And you know what it's like whenever Dow Jones is around. He's a mischievous character at the best of times.
Oh, yeah.
You probably know more than anyone.
Yeah, I was going to say, he actually... I'm going to... sorry, Dow, I'm going to embarrass you here. He actually got me into the business.
Oh, yeah?
Well, at UKPW anyway, because there was another promoter. I won't mention his name because, but he got me working down in Maidstone.
Oh, yeah.
Because I interviewed him because I do radio work, and he interviewed me I interviewed him on my show.
Yeah.
That he recognised me and messaged me one day and said, do you fancy doing commentating? And I was like, okay. So, that promotion went down after about three shows.
Oh, right.
And then I heard from Anton Green.
Yeah.
Because he was in charge at the time. And he said, Dow Jones has mentioned your name, and we think you'll be a good fit, like, for commentating. So I was like, okay. So if it wasn't for Dow Jones, then I wouldn't have joined UKPW. I don't think.
Yeah, he can be a good guy when he wants to be, can't he?
Can be.
Yeah.
So, who have been some of your favourite opponents?
There was a time when we used to wrestle each other a lot, and it was so I've got to also say my best friend JJ Lynch, because we've not always tagged together. We often ended up wrestling each other, which was always great. Another guy who I wrestled a lot just before the pandemic that I don't think gets enough recognition at all, and I'm so happy that he is also signed on to UKPW, is Harry Sefton. I love wrestling Harry. Harry's probably one of my favourite people to wrestle because we very rarely have to actually talk about. I don't know how much of the curtain I'm allowed to peel back here. Are we behind the scenes? Can I?
Well, it can be edited out anyway.
Yeah, well, if we're protecting it, we'll see how you can protect the business for me, Ross. That's fine. Is I just basically, if I like being able to, I'd look at Harry and we go, what do you want to do? And he's like, just want to wrestle for a bit. And it's like, yeah, great. So we go out, start wrestling, see what gets a good reaction, see what doesn't, and then we build from there. And we the most we've ever planned is the end. The most we've ever planned is the end. And then we spend, 8 minutes building up towards it. And oh man, that's my favorite kind of wrestling, because you can plan a million different things that you think are super cool. And as I found out at the beginning of my career, what I think is not cool. So I'll be out there, oh, here you go. Everyone will love this. And then you do it and it's like crickets. And you're like, oh, no. Nightmare.
But, I totally agree about Harry Sefton. He's so underrated. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, smooth as butter, mate. Watch him. Anyone, go out and watch some of his matches. He's had a series of matches that I saw him do with Jordan Breaks, who's also one of my favourite people to wrestle, for a similar reason that you can just be like, do you want to wrestle? And that's how it'll go. For Premier Promotions, sort of down by the coast in Brighton. And oh man, some of the matches old school British rounds matches, and it was great, absolute quality stuff. So yeah, Harry Sefton. Another person that I really enjoy wrestling is who just got announced for Progress's Natural Progression is Danny Black. Last time we wrestled each other, was the Progress pre-show. That I think is probably one of my favourite matches that I've had actually. Who else? Those are probably the main ones that spring to mind. And then there's this one match that I always look back on fondly, which was a 6-man tag team match, which was me, David Francisco, former professional wrestler Joseph Kafka, and against Connor Mills, the OJMO, and Maverick Mayhew that we had at Battle Pro, which was a lot of fun. And I think I can't remember because I lost, and I was crawling my way behind the curtain to see a medic, but I believe there was a standing ovation. Finished. I was told there was, but I got kicked in the head numerous times, so who knows?
Ouch. Was there a match that you were in at Progress that was it had you and Solomon Lamb on there?
Yes. Oh man, that was there's like 2 stages to me being a wrestler, unfortunately, and there's pre singlet and post singlet, and pre singlet is I think one time in a promo, the OJMO referred to it as is my Creator Wrestler version 2 look, which I can't argue with now. At the time, I was like, oh man, how dare he say that? But then I look back on the photos now and I'm like, yeah, man, it looks exactly like, when you play like SmackDown versus Raw. And it's just like, here's a man with some shorts and here he is. No, tan, really pale. I had like purple shorts and some wrestling boots. I still have the same wrestling boots, but it was not a good look. And that was, unfortunately, that was an 8-man tag. And that it was the pre-singlet, it was the purple shorts, no tan look. Yeah, that was me, David again, Solomon Lamb, somebody else I can't remember. Against the NIC, OJMO, someone else. Yeah, 8-man tag at one of the unboxing shows, I think.
Yeah, that was it. And
I remember that because at one point, I think towards the end, I grabbed JMO's boot to stop him getting back in the ring. I think he just dived on everyone, and I grabbed his boot to stop him getting back in. And he kicked me so hard on top of my head that I had the perfect imprint on the top of my bald head of his boot. Like you could see the full-on ridges and everything. It was like it was a perfect print. And I had to go to work the next day, and they were like, what's going on with your head? I was like, well, there's this thing I do on the weekends.
So, I can't remember if I've asked it or not. I'll ask it again anyway. You mentioned about injuries. What's been the most serious injury?
Well, I've only really had one that I'd call an injury. I think everyone picks up sort of weird knocks and stuff like that. It's just the nature of wrestling. But yeah, the big one, and luckily, touch wood, the only one that I'll get was I herniated 3 discs in my neck about 6 months into training. So from when I did the beginners course, And yeah, it was real bad. I remember remember being like, yeah, that was real painful, like how it happened and stuff. I was like, oh, that really hurt, but I think I'm okay. And then I carried on training for about 6 weeks afterwards, and it just became like the most painful thing to do, to the point where I'd be training and whoever was taking the class would just be like, are you all right? And I'd be like, these 3 hours are like the worst 3 hours of my life. Like I'd just be in like the worst pain. So after about 6 weeks, I was like, I can't just keep doing this. I've got to go and see a doctor. I got an MRI and they were like, yeah, you've got to stop wrestling. You've got to stop going to the gym like now. This is like, go rehab this. So yeah, and that took, full on 6 months. I had like physio twice a week. And then, just kept getting checkups all the time until eventually they were like, it's not great, but if you take care of yourself and, you keep the muscles strong, which was a lot of what the physio was about, they were like, we think you'll be okay. And then got back at it. But yeah, it was real bad, like scary, and also like just having to take the 6 months off was, and just a slow process of rehabbing it was pretty intense. So yeah, that's easily the worst one I've had.
So can you remember how? I'll try again. Can you remember how you actually did it?
Yeah. So obviously not going to name names because it's wrestling. We're all just figuring it out. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to like have a go at anyone. But yeah, they were just doing a move where obviously I'm supposed to sort of land on my back, but like it was like the Death Valley driver, like a sort of that sort of style. They like held onto my legs rather than sort of letting them go, so that I didn't land on my back. I sort of was just all hunched up and just went, onto the mat like that, all crumpled over on the back of my neck. Yeah, it wasn't great.
Right, so talking about going to UKPW now, who do you want to face from the current wrestler?
Oh man, who don't I want to face from the current roster is probably the best question. I really want to wrestle. We've never wrestled against each other at UKPW, but I do want to wrestle Dow Jones again. To be fair, he would probably also be one of my favorite people to wrestle, because a lot of our conversations usually revolve around what's the thing we can do that will make the audience have the most fun, which I think is always, I enjoy having a conversation with someone like that, because I'm like, yeah, we should try and make sure that these people have their money's worth. We don't have to do a crazy dive, and we don't have to do a Canadian destroyer. It's what can we do, what can our two characters do that will make people be as entertained as possible. So, but I'd love to do that against Dow Jones at UKPW. Alexander Ross, another just smooth as butter, absolutely incredible wrestler. Love to mix it up with him. I think I saw as well that Roy Johnson is on the roster now, so I'm not sure whether it's an opportunity for me and JJ to test our mettle against the 187, which would be great as well. Him and Roth would be pretty good.
Yeah, I'd love to see the 87 in UKPW. Oops.
Yeah, and I'd love to face up against them. Just and I know me and JJ are pretty good. I know those guys are very, very good. So I'd like to see who comes out on top. Maverick Mayhew, another fantastic guy. Like I said, wrestling in that 6-man tag, wrestled him a few times after. Great guy to wrestle. And the one true, aside from JJ Lynch, the one true love of my life, Fabio Romano, because I could wrestle him all day. He's my favourite person in the world.
And finally, before we do the word association, what can the UKPW fans expect from Rex Armstrong?
Well, you get a lot. I hit people hard. I like to wrestle people, like a lot of suplexes, a lot of ground game. Throwing people around. I'm one of the bigger people that tend to get in the ring, so you're going to see bodies flying. As soon as it's safe for me to do so, I'm going to be drinking all your beers, because that's the other thing I like to do. I just like smashing cans and throwing hands, mate. That's what I'm about. Let's have a few beers and let's hit a few people. It's a good time. But also, especially when it's me and JJ, I can guarantee you're going to see a tag team match completely different from any other tag team match that is on that show. That's the one thing we go out of our way to do. What can we do that is different? And how can we make you, rather than being like, oh, look at this move, how can we make you feel something? How can we make you come back from the show and be like, yep, there were loads of cool moves, but that little moment that those guys had was the best, like, or the moment they had with that team, and the way I felt about that, and how, you know, that's what we aim to do. We try to not get you with moves, we try to get you in moments, which I feel makes me sound like I'm actually very WWE rather than not Japanese wrestling fan, isn't it? But that's my thing. What can we make you feel rather than rather than going, oh, that looked like it hurt.
Okay, brilliant answer. So yeah, we'll do the word association now. So sure. I'll give you.
Stressful. Here we go.
Yeah, I'll give you 5 names, and you say the first name that comes to your head.
Right. Okay.
First word that comes to your head when you hear the name.
Yes.
And we'll start off with the UKPW champion, Dow Jones.
First word that comes to my head is money. Yeah. Obviously.
Then we've got your tag team partner, JJ Lynch.
Best friend.
RJC.
Knowledgeable.
Fentos.
Tall. Outrageously tall. Honestly, just the biggest man. It's like wrestling a tree. It's completely unnecessary. He's got to rein it in. It's just incredible. I look at him and I'm always like, I'll back myself. I reckon I could take him. And then every time we wrestle, nothing. Doesn't move an inch. I always fall for it. I'm like, oh, test of strength. I reckon I can do this. Crushes me every time. When will I learn?
I was going to say, if you ever need a lift, you can use my chair to kind of get some leverage.
I think I will do. Do you know what? One time, here's a story for you. One time, I wrestled Fentos, and we had the match. We were in, well, it was UKPW. It was for UKPW. I can't remember where it was. Not Falconwood, but one of the other ones that aren't the Medway. Here's the T, I think. They go there sometimes.
Tenor.
Yes. We were there. And we did the match. And I thought it was the finish. That's in the end of the match. He did his move, and I was getting ready to get pinned. And he just went, stay here, don't move. Which is, that's when you know something bad's going to happen, isn't it? But it was terrifying, but obviously because he's amazing at what he does, it was fine. He just starts going up to the top rope. And I'm like, out of the corner of my eye, oh no, what's going on? And he does a moonsault. Just moonsaults on me. And it was great. It was like, it doesn't hurt. But there was that moment as he was going over, and I was like, oh, this is how I die. So yeah, right, next time you'll be, if you hear him say, don't move, stay here, you're in for a surprise.
Okay, last name is Maverick Makey.
Lots of flips, and that's not one word. That's obviously not one word, but lots of flips, and I love it.
We'll go for more than one. Go for as many as you can think of. Okay, brilliant. So, Rex Armstrong, thanks for joining me on UKPW Insider, and I shall see you when shows are eventually allowed to start running again.
You will, mate. I can't wait to see you and hang out with you and all the other usual suspects at UKPW. And obviously, thanks very much for having me on, mate. I had a great time.
Yeah, no, thanks.